I'll never forget the day I discovered my granddaughter's secret diary. It was hidden deep in her closet, locked away from prying eyes. I was searching for something else, but the diary caught my attention. As I opened it, I felt a sense of unease. The entries in the diary revealed a shocking truth. My granddaughter, who I had trusted with my own life, had been stealing from me. The amounts were staggering: $10,000 here, $5,000 there. It all added up to a whopping $50,000. I felt like I had been punched in the gut. How could my own flesh and blood betray me like this? I thought back to all the times I had helped her, all the times I had given her money. And this is how she repaid me? I couldn't believe what I was reading. I had to know more. I kept reading, devouring every word. The diary revealed a pattern of deceit and betrayal that went back months. As I read, I felt my anger growing. How could she do this to me? I had given her everything, and this is how she repaid me? But as I kept reading, I saw something that made my heart skip a beat. A name. A name that I knew all too well. A name that made my blood run cold. It was the name of my granddaughter's boyfriend. I had met him a few times, but I had never liked him. There was something about him that didn't sit right with me. Now, I knew why. He was the one who had been manipulating my granddaughter, using her to get to my money. I felt a sense of determination wash over me. I was going to get to the bottom of this. I was going to find out what had really been going on. And I was going to make sure that my granddaughter and her boyfriend paid for what they had done. But as I closed the diary, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was in for a fight. A fight that would change my life forever. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was in for a fight. A fight that would change my life forever. I felt a sense of determination wash over me. I was going to get to the bottom of this. I was going to find out what had really been going on. And I was going to make sure that my granddaughter and her boyfriend paid for what they had done. I started by doing some research on the boyfriend. I wanted to know more about him, about his background, about his motives. I spent hours scouring the internet, looking for any information I could find. And what I found shocked me. The boyfriend had a history of manipulating people, of using them for his own gain. He had a string of failed relationships behind him, and in each one, he had managed to talk his partner into giving him money. It was a pattern of behavior that sent shivers down my spine. I knew I had to confront my granddaughter. I had to know the truth. I had to know why she had let this man manipulate her. I took a deep breath and picked up the phone. I dialed her number, my heart pounding in my chest. "Hey, Grandma," she said, her voice bright and cheerful. "Hey, sweetie," I replied, trying to keep my tone light. "Can we talk?" "Of course, Grandma," she said, her voice faltering slightly. "I want to talk about your boyfriend," I said, getting straight to the point. There was a pause on the other end of the line. "What about him?" she asked, her voice cautious. "I know what's been going on," I said, my voice firm. "I know he's been using you to get to my money." There was another pause, this one longer than the first. "Grandma, I don't know what you're talking about," she stammered. "Don't lie to me," I said, my voice rising. "I've seen the diary. I know what's been going on. You need to tell me the truth." There was a long silence on the other end of the line. I could feel the tension building, could feel the weight of the situation bearing down on me. "Okay, Grandma," she said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'll tell you the truth. But you have to promise not to get angry." "I promise," I said, my voice firm. The boyfriend had been manipulating her from the start. He had played on her vulnerabilities, had used her trust against her. He had convinced her that she needed him, that she couldn't survive without him. And she had believed him. As I listened to her story, I felt a sense of outrage building inside me. How could he do this to her? How could he use her like this? But I kept my promise. I didn't get angry. I listened, my heart heavy with sorrow and regret. When she finished talking, I took a deep breath. We need to get you away from him, I said, my voice firm. I know, Grandma, she said, her voice filled with tears. I know I made a mistake. I'll do whatever it takes to make it right. I felt a sense of relief wash over me. Maybe, just maybe, we could get through this after all. But as I hung up the phone, I couldn't shake the feeling that the boyfriend was still out there, watching and waiting. I knew I had to be careful, had to protect my granddaughter from him. I started by changing the locks on my house, by making sure that he couldn't get in. I also changed my bank account, making sure that he couldn't access my money. But as I was doing all of this, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. I would catch glimpses of someone out of the corner of my eye, but whenever I turned to look, there would be no one there. I started to feel like I was losing my mind. Was I really being watched, or was it just my imagination? I decided to take matters into my own hands. I set up a security camera outside my house, hoping to catch a glimpse of the boyfriend. But as I was setting up the camera, I received a strange message. It was from an unknown number, and all it said was, "You'll never be able to protect her." I felt a chill run down my spine. Who was this? And how did they know what was going on? I tried to brush it off, but the message stayed with me. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was in grave danger, that my granddaughter and I were being stalked. I decided to take the message to the police, hoping that they could help me get to the bottom of things. But as I was walking into the police station, I saw something that made my blood run cold. The boyfriend was standing outside, watching me. I knew then that I was in for the fight of my life. I felt a surge of adrenaline as I quickened my pace, my heart pounding in my chest. The boyfriend's eyes locked onto mine, a smirk spreading across his face. He was enjoying this, I realized. He was enjoying the game of cat and mouse. I pushed open the door to the police station and stepped inside, my eyes scanning the room for a familiar face. I spotted a detective I had met before, a no-nonsense woman with a kind face. I hurried over to her, my breath coming in short gasps. "Detective James," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I need your help." She looked up from the papers on her desk, her eyes narrowing. "What's going on, Mr. Johnson?" I took a deep breath and launched into the story, telling her about the boyfriend, the stolen money, and the strange message. She listened intently, her expression growing more serious by the minute. When I finished, she nodded thoughtfully. "I think we can help you, Mr. Johnson. But I have to warn you, this could get complicated. We'll need to get a restraining order, and we'll need to investigate the boyfriend's activities." I nodded, feeling a sense of relief wash over me. Finally, someone was taking me seriously. But as we were discussing the details, I caught a glimpse of the boyfriend out of the corner of my eye. He was standing outside the police station, his eyes fixed on me with an unnerving intensity. I felt a shiver run down my spine. He was not going to give up easily. Detective James followed my gaze and her expression darkened. "I'll get someone to escort you home, Mr. Johnson. We'll make sure you're safe." But as we were leaving the police station, I realized that I wasn't the only one who was in danger. My granddaughter was still with me, and I knew that the boyfriend would stop at nothing to get to her. I felt a sense of panic rising up inside me. What if he tried to hurt her? What if he tried to take her away from me? I pushed the thoughts aside and focused on getting us to safety. Detective James had arranged for a police escort to take us home, and I was grateful for the extra protection. But as we were driving through the streets, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched. I kept looking over my shoulder, expecting to see the boyfriend's face in the crowd. And then, suddenly, I saw him. He was standing on the sidewalk, his eyes fixed on us with an unnerving intensity. I felt a surge of fear and I reached out to grab my granddaughter's hand. "We have to get out of here," I said, my voice low and urgent. But it was too late. The boyfriend had already spotted us, and he was moving towards us with a purpose. I knew then that we were in grave danger. The boyfriend was not going to give up, and he would stop at nothing to get what he wanted. I felt a sense of desperation rising up inside me. What was I going to do? How was I going to protect my granddaughter? And then, just as suddenly, everything went black. I don't know what happened next. I don't know how I ended up on the ground, or how my granddaughter ended up screaming. All I know is that when I came to, the boyfriend was standing over me, his eyes blazing with anger. "You'll never be able to protect her," he spat, his voice dripping with malice. And then, everything went black again. When I came to, I was disoriented and groggy. I was lying on a cold, hard floor, and my head was pounding with a dull ache. I tried to sit up, but a wave of dizziness washed over me and I fell back down. As I lay there, I realized that I was in some kind of dark, dingy room. I couldn't see anything, but I could hear the sound of footsteps echoing off the walls. I tried to call out, but my voice was hoarse and barely audible. Suddenly, a faint light flickered to life in the corner of the room. I squinted, trying to make out what it was. It was a small, battery-powered lantern, and it cast airy shadows on the walls. As I looked around, I saw that I was in some kind of abandoned warehouse. The walls were cracked and crumbling, and the air was thick with dust. I tried to sit up again, and this time I managed to stay upright. I looked around, trying to get my bearings. That was when I saw my granddaughter. She was standing in the corner of the room, her eyes wide with fear. She was gagged and bound, and she looked like she had been crying. I tried to call out to her, but my voice was still hoarse. I struggled to my feet, my head spinning with dizziness. I stumbled over to my granddaughter and tried to untie her. But the ropes were tight, and I couldn't budge them. I was starting to panic. Where were we? How did we get here? And who had done this to us? As I looked around, I saw a figure standing in the shadows. It was the boyfriend. He was watching us with a cold, calculating gaze. "Welcome to my home," he said, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "You're going to be staying here for a while." I tried to lunge at him, but my legs were weak and I stumbled. He laughed, a cold, mirthless sound. "You're not going anywhere," he said. "You're going to stay right here, until I get what I want." I was starting to lose hope. We were trapped, and I didn't know how to get us out. The boyfriend seemed to sense my despair, and he smiled. "Don't worry," he said. "You'll be happy to see me. You'll be happy to give me what I want." And with that, he turned and disappeared into the shadows. I was left alone with my granddaughter, wondering what he had planned for us. We were trapped, and I didn't know how to escape. I was starting to lose hope. But then, I heard a faint noise. It was the sound of footsteps echoing off the walls. They were light, cautious footsteps, and they seemed to be coming from outside the room. I looked at my granddaughter, and she looked back at me. We were both thinking the same thing. Could it be help? Could someone have found us? I tried to call out, but my voice was still hoarse. I tried to make a noise, but it was too quiet. The footsteps stopped right outside the room, and I held my breath. Who was it? Was it help, or was it something else entirely? And then, the door creaked open. A figure stood in the doorway, silhouetted by the dim light. I strained to see who it was, but it was too dark. The figure took a step forward, and I saw a glimmer of light on metal. It was a gun. My heart sank. We were in even more danger than I had thought. The figure took another step forward, and I saw that it was a woman. She was dressed in a black jumpsuit, and her hair was tied back in a ponytail. She looked like she meant business. "Who are you?" I croaked, trying to keep my voice steady. The woman didn't answer. Instead, she looked at my granddaughter and nodded. "You're the one," she said, her voice firm. "You're the one he's been looking for." My granddaughter looked at me, confusion written all over her face. I shook my head, trying to clear it. What was going on? Who was this woman? And what did she want with my granddaughter? The woman took another step forward, her gun still trained on us. "My name is Agent Thompson," she said. "And I'm here to take you into protective custody." Protective custody? What did that mean? I looked at my granddaughter, and she looked back at me. We were both thinking the same thing. Was this woman friend or foe? Agent Thompson seemed to sense our uncertainty. "Don't worry," she said. "I'm here to help. But we need to get out of here, now." She gestured to the door, and I saw that it was slightly ajar. "He's not far behind," she said. "We need to move." I didn't know what to do. Part of me wanted to trust Agent Thompson, but another part of me was screaming to be cautious. What if she was working with the boyfriend? What if she was just another pawn in his game? But something about her seemed genuine. Maybe it was the way she looked at my granddaughter, with a softness in her eyes. Maybe it was the way she held her gun, with a confident air. Whatever it was, I decided to trust her. "Okay," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Let's go." Agent Thompson nodded, and she gestured to my granddaughter. "Come on," she said. "We need to get out of here." My granddaughter nodded, and she stood up. Agent Thompson helped her untie the ropes, and then we all moved towards the door. As we stepped out into the hallway, I saw that it was deserted. The only sound was the creaking of the old building, and the distant hum of a car engine. Agent Thompson led us down the hallway, her gun still trained on the door. We moved quickly, our footsteps echoing off the walls. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest, and my granddaughter's hand was trembling in mine. But Agent Thompson seemed calm, her eyes fixed on some point ahead. We reached the end of the hallway, and Agent Thompson pushed open a door. We stepped out into the night air, and I saw that we were in some kind of alleyway. The only light came from a distant street lamp, casting long shadows across the ground. Agent Thompson looked around, her eyes scanning the rooftops. "We need to get out of here," she said. "Now." And with that, she grabbed my granddaughter's arm, and we all started to run. We ran down the alleyway, our footsteps echoing off the walls. Agent Thompson led the way, her gun still trained on the rooftops. I followed close behind, my granddaughter's hand still clutched in mine. We weaved through the narrow alleys, dodging trash cans and leaping over puddles. The streets were deserted, but I could feel eyes watching us from the shadows. Agent Thompson seemed to sense it too, her eyes scanning the rooftops with a practiced air. We turned a corner, and suddenly we were on a busy street. Cars honked and people shouted, the sounds blending together in a cacophony of noise. Agent Thompson pushed us through the crowds, her gun hidden beneath her jacket. We moved quickly, dodging pedestrians and cars. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest, and my granddaughter's hand was trembling in mine. We finally reached a car, a sleek black sedan parked on the side of the street. Agent Thompson opened the door, and we piled inside. She started the engine, and we sped away from the curb. I looked back, seeing the crowded streets receding into the distance. We were safe, for now. But I knew that the boyfriend wouldn't give up easily. He would be looking for us, and he would stop at nothing to find us. Agent Thompson seemed to sense my unease. "Don't worry," she said, her voice firm. "We'll get you to a safe house. You'll be protected." I nodded, trying to believe her. But I knew that the boyfriend had resources. He had money and connections, and he would use them to find us. I looked at my granddaughter, her eyes wide with fear. We were in this together, now. We had to trust Agent Thompson, and we had to hope that she could keep us safe. The car sped through the streets, the lights blurring together in a kaleidoscope of color. I felt a sense of disorientation, as if I was losing my grip on reality. But I knew that I had to stay focused. I had to keep my granddaughter safe. Agent Thompson seemed to sense my tension. "We're almost there," she said, her voice soft. "Just a few more minutes." I nodded, trying to relax. But my heart was still pounding in my chest, and my mind was racing with worst-case scenarios. What if the boyfriend found us? What if Agent Thompson was working with him? I pushed the thoughts aside, trying to focus on the present. We were safe, for now. And we had to make the most of it. The car turned a corner, and suddenly we were in a quiet neighborhood. The houses were large and imposing, with manicured lawns and perfectly trimmed hedges. Agent Thompson pulled up to a house, a large Victorian mansion with a wraparound porch. "We're here," she said, her voice firm. I nodded, feeling a sense of relief wash over me. We were safe, for now. But I knew that the boyfriend wouldn't give up easily. He would be looking for us, and he would stop at nothing to find us. As we stepped out of the car, I felt a sense of relief wash over me. We were finally safe, finally free from the boyfriend's grasp. Agent Thompson led us up the walkway, her eyes scanning the surroundings with a practiced air. We reached the front door, and she pushed it open, revealing a warm and inviting interior. "Welcome to the safe house," she said, her voice soft. "You'll be staying here until the boyfriend is caught and brought to justice." I nodded, feeling a sense of gratitude towards Agent Thompson. She had saved us, had risked her own life to protect us. I looked at my granddaughter, her eyes wide with wonder as she took in the surroundings. She was safe, finally safe. And I knew that I would do anything to keep her that way. We spent the next few days in the safe house, recovering from our ordeal. Agent Thompson was always there, watching over us, protecting us. She was like a guardian angel, a fierce and loyal protector. And I knew that I would never forget her, never forget what she had done for us. But as the days passed, I began to feel a sense of restlessness. I knew that the boyfriend was still out there, still a threat to us. And I knew that I couldn't just sit back and wait for him to be caught. I had to take action, had to do something to make sure that he paid for what he had done. Agent Thompson seemed to sense my unease. "Don't worry," she said, her voice firm. "We'll get him. We'll make sure that he pays for what he's done." But I knew that I couldn't just sit back and wait. I had to do something, had to take matters into my own hands. And so, I came up with a plan. A plan to catch the boyfriend, to make him pay for what he had done. Agent Thompson was skeptical at first, but I convinced her to go along with it. And so, we set our plan in motion. We waited until nightfall, until the boyfriend would be most likely to make a move. And then, we sprang into action. We set a trap that would catch the boyfriend and bring him to justice. And as we waited, I felt a sense of anticipation building inside me. I knew that this was it, knew that this was the moment that would finally bring us closure. The boyfriend took the bait, falling into our trap with ease. And as we confronted him, I felt a sense of satisfaction wash over me. He was caught, finally caught. And he would pay for what he had done. The boyfriend was arrested, taken away in handcuffs. And as we watched him go, I felt a sense of closure wash over me. It was finally over, finally done. We were safe, finally safe. And I knew that I would never forget what Agent Thompson had done for us. She had saved us, had risked her own life to protect us. And I knew that I would always be grateful to her, always grateful for what she had done. As we walked away from the safe house, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. We were finally free from the boyfriend's grasp. And I knew that we would never be held captive again, never be held back by fear. We were free, finally free. And I knew that I would always cherish that freedom, always cherish the sense of peace that came with it.